Hi, this is Stacia, and I wanted to share with you my third game that I played at the Cleveland Open. This was on August 12th, 2017. My opponent was Stephen Tymcio, a college student, rated only 1214, and my rating at the time was 1450 for this tournament. This was my second tournament ever, and this game is my first tournament win. So in the slow time control, I noticed that, I wasn't as strong as I thought. Um, G30 rapid games are much different than these slow time controls. So this win was really big for me. I was really excited afterwards, um, especially since it was basically equal until the end game. So I am going to sort of fly through the opening. I'll make a few comments here. Um, but the game becomes very interesting in like the late middle game to end game. So I want to mostly fast forward to that. All right, so this is mainline Scandinavian so far. Okay, and c6, creating the retreat square for the queen because there are discoveries. And my opponent decided on knight e4. Now, this isn't a bad move necessarily. I mean, it is theory still, but I just noticed that a lot of lower rated players play this way because black does not really mind trading off this knight. And here you can really take either way. Seems like all the grandmasters take with the g-pawn, just allows more center control and it allows for an attack. The rook can come here. They will castle queenside. They'll play e6, knight d7. Bishop usually comes here. This bishop can drop back. So even though it looks like taking with the g-pawn creates weaknesses, it's really totally fine to play this way. I chose to take the other way in this game. And the reason is I like how it develops my bishop, or helps develop my bishop, but it does give up some center control. Okay, and d6. I was threatening his, well, not really. Okay. Let's get to the good stuff. Here I missed this move, bishop a5. So pinning my knight to my queen. I was a little uncomfortable, but I think after queen d7, I'm really just fine. And then he let me off the hook because he took. So I don't think this is a good move. He's given me the bishop pair, and this also gives me the a file, so I'm not sure what the point of trading off was. Okay. He threw an in-between move there. Okay, and I thought, here's a chance for me to eliminate my weakness and grab more of the center. The only problem with this move is that it does give up the d5 square. So my opponent jumped in with that right away. Again, I didn't see this move. I really should. But it's totally fine. It doesn't do anything. I can just simply move my rook. I wanted to put my rook on this file anyway, perhaps. I mean, okay, I had to give up the a file, but this is totally fine. And now I didn't like this bishop. It was so strong, so I decided I would trade it off. And it does fix my pawns. So again, I don't know if trading was the best move on his part. I do have the computer to help us. Yeah, it actually was the best move here. Yeah, because otherwise, where does this bishop go? Okay, now my pawns are fixed. I have a kingside majority, so I was pretty happy. This pawn was needed to be recaptured anyway, so now material's even. Okay, and he's coming down, so queen a7. I took here. And the reason is I wanted to go after this b pawn. I thought that pawn's weak and maybe I can just attack it. And I saw this line. Yeah, and here I just retreat my bishop. Now my bishop's safe. I don't have to worry about it. It also blocks any checks. It also defends c6 if he ever gets his other, or g7 rather, if he ever gets his other rook down here. Okay, and this is a move I love to see. Rook b1. So now his rook's fairly passive. I mean, he's going to push his pawn, obviously. But his rook's here and not on the 7th rank, making my life miserable. Okay, and rook b4. So my plan's pretty obvious. I want to double here and attack that pawn. I'm going to force his knight to this square where he's going to have to play b3 and defend this. He can defend his pawns this way. And then my plan was if I could somehow get my bishop here to attack the knight, then I should be in good shape. But it's not so easy. He can get counterplay. Also, I kind of liked his knight being where it is because it can't really go anywhere. You know, it would be pointless on this square, can't go here. Anytime you have a pawn like with 2 ranks between the knight, the pawn does a great job restricting that knight. So I was pretty happy with my position. And the computer says black's slightly better here. Okay, so b3, and I doubled as planned. Knight d2 defending. And now I pull my rook back. Okay, so let's look at this position a little deeper. The computer has a different move in mind. So I wonder if you are thinking the same thing. The computer is suggesting that I pull back to b7 and aim to trade off this rook. Probably because this rook is better than mine. It's on the 7th rank. It's really active. It's going to cause problems. So maybe trading off a pair of rooks is not so bad in this position. The only thing I was worried about is I'm not sure how good my bishop is. I've got this pawn blocking it. I've got these other pawns on the dark squares. I would have to get them on light squares. That's why I didn't go for that. Instead, I went to b6. So I think just defending this for the moment. Now, I had dreams of like pushing my pawns like this and getting them on the light squares, and that way my bishop would be a lot better. All right, so king f1, and I played the move g6. Okay, so my idea is I really want to play bishop h6 here, attacking this knight, which would allow me to win this pawn. But I failed to see my opponent has a good response here, knight e4. All right, so now if I take the pawn, he's going to take my pawn with check. And yeah, his knight can get really active in a lot of lines here. I have to be really careful. In fact, there's only one move that's good for black here. And do you know what it is? Yeah, it's the move e5. So I do remember calculating e5. This is a good couple weeks ago now, so it's harder to remember. But just the idea is, okay, I want to move my pawns forward, but I'm also defending the pawn. In fact, I think that might have been the main reason I played my rook there, but who knows. Okay, so now he's attacking my pawn. And, well, the good news is I do have it defended by the bishop. But, so if I lose this pawn, I can take his b pawn. Okay, so I played h6. Computer likes h5 better, or f5. Computer especially likes f5. Yeah, f5, getting my pawns on the light squares, attacking the knight. I guess asking him to go ahead and take that. Oh, and maybe I know why now. But really, the reason I played this move was I didn't want the knight coming to this square later, so I'm trying to restrict the knight. So here he played knight takes pawn. And, okay, I didn't take much thought, and I recapture with the bishop because I'm going to win the b pawn. But there's a better move here. So if you'd like to pause your video and find the win for black, do so now. Okay, and yeah, it's the move bishop d6. And I'm sad I didn't see this during the game. I mean, it's a one move tactic. So the idea is you're hitting this rook, which is defending the knight. The rook really, my rooks are doing a good job defending these other squares. The rook has nowhere to go. I mean, the best thing white can do here is fork my bishops. But after this, I win a rook, and then he wins in exchange, but he's just down a full piece at the end. So this would have been completely winning. So that would have been nice to find bishop d6. But alas, I did not. So I took, and so let that be a lesson to me and anyone else watching this video. Not a good idea to just mindlessly recapture. Definitely want to keep an open mind and find other moves, because bishop d6 was the win right there that I missed. Instead, we went into this position, which is a draw. Okay, but I'd say both sides have chances here, especially when you're lower rated. Probably grandmasters would just agree to a draw right now, but I'm not a grandmaster. And white, white's plan is clear. They're going to push their pass pawn and try to make a queen. And I have a kingside majority, and if I can manage to stop this pawn, then I will have a 4 versus 3, which is still a draw, but it would be two results. I'll either figure out how to win or I'll make a draw, but it would be worth fighting. Okay, so this move I thought was a little inaccurate, but it's actually just fine because he is getting out of the way of his pawn. Obviously, I can't take the rook. That would be a big mistake. Now he's winning because the square of the pawn, even after I move my king closer, I'm too late. He's going to queen. All right, so I moved back this way, just attacking it, and he pushes. Okay, now I want to bring my king up. He wants to bring his king up too. And actually, computer's actually suggesting rook c2 here. So I guess just keeping his king from getting involved. I didn't really see the point though, since the king will be coming. Anyways. So I was trying to get my king close to the pawn. And these little maneuvers in chess are funny. So he attacks the rook. Like I saw this line. Attacks again, but now I just pull back. If he comes up again, I can attack his pawns. So he did. So, I'm just moving my rook around. It's kind of funny, but each move does have purpose. Yeah, and now he chose this. I was not expecting him to do this. And if you're a higher rated player or you just know this, please let me know your thoughts on this plan of white to get his king over here. I mean, I understand he wants to escort this passed pawn, but I thought this was risky, like a risky plan, because if he does succeed and get his king over here, and maybe he loses the pawn, then his king is going to be way over here, and I've got a kingside majority, and it just looks like black would be winning after that. But it's not so clear if I could win this pawn. So it was risky. I was trying to calculate as far as I could. So, okay, I checked him. I decided I was going to take this pawn, but I wanted to check him first and encourage him to go in here. Was that a good idea? I don't know. So he did. And then I grabbed a pawn. So I had to calculate carefully here, but I saw I could grab this pawn at least. And I actually saw lines too where I could just eat all his pawns, come back. I'll show this line. Sacrifice my rook for this pawn, and it would be a rook versus 4 connected pass pawns. Which I don't know. I think that's a draw. I don't know what that would be. All right, so yeah. So let's look at this interesting line. So I could take here. He would just push, take, push. Got to stop it. The pawn queens. Sacrifice. And now I would probably play this move. Yeah, and the computer says this is a draw. So I could have went for this, but it's not winning. So I'm glad I didn't. I wasn't sure what to make of that. I figured I was probably okay, but yeah, it would have just been a draw. So instead of that, let's go back. I chose to just get behind the passed pawn, and I want to get my king to the d file and try to win the pawn, basically, because, and if I have tempos that I can use, I'm going to push this guy, because by taking this one pawn, I was able to create a 4 versus 2, and now my e pawn is a passed pawn here. So I was feeling pretty good. Computer still says this is a draw. All right, so king d6. And this is a really fascinating part of the game. So my opponent plays rook b6 here. And so I ask you, is rook b6 the best move? What would be, in your opinion, the best move for white in this position? And if you'd like to pause your video, go ahead and do so now. Okay, so the situation here is that white has only one move that draws. And it's not rook b6. Rook b6 and black's slightly better, or a bit better. The move is actually rook b1. And the idea behind rook b1 is he wants to check my king. He wants to deliver a bunch of checks. And, all right, so I could push e4 here, but then I'm just going to be checked. And if I go to e6, he can push here, but now I can check him. And he can't really get away from these checks. He can hide behind the pawn if he wants. But as long as his king's behind the pawn, this kind of reminds me of a Lucina position, for sure. So rook d7 check. Yeah, and this, he could make a draw here. So the whole idea is that there's perpetuals and it's going to be a draw. So that's the only move that draws, is that rook b1 move. But he played rook b6, which of course is very tempting, right? Because, so I had to calculate this out really well. I figured rook b6, I really want to go to this square, but I can't. So I actually wanted to see c7 check, and then I could put my king on d7, and then I didn't see how he stops me from winning his pawn. And turns out that was correct. So I played e4, because now if I have tempos, I'm going to push this guy. And sure enough, c7 check was played. So this is pretty much a mistake, but the real mistake is rook b6, which is fascinating. It looks like, how could that be wrong? But it is. All right, so yeah, I mean, I went through it a little fast, but c7 check. Now my king can come here, and I have two attackers on the pawn. He can't even put his rook here, because I would just take it. So, yeah, I think white's just losing now. So he pushed his pawn. I don't think this is the best way to continue either. I don't know what the point of that was. All right, and he's going to eat my pawns, but I got my rook behind my pawn, and I could just push to win if I want. Yeah, he can't really stop this. So, so this was basically a 5-hour game, and it was pretty equal, even though he was much lower rated than me. So I really would not have been happy with the draw. So I'm quite happy that I found the correct way to win the pass pawn and win this game. So there were 2 more games in the tournament on Sunday. This was the second game on Saturday, and it was a 5-hour game. And Sunday we had games at 10 a.m. and 3:15, I believe it was. So I will be posting those as well. So please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Check out my Twitter if you want. I do have a Twitter account. I'm pretty active on there. And I'm not, like really obsessed with getting followers or anything on my social media yet. I feel like I'm mostly just learning to do these videos. I want to do them better, create better and better quality material as I move forward. And then maybe I'll push harder for followers and things like that. But if you are watching this, thank you so much for your early support. Please say hi, and I'll see you next video. Thank you.